What's the craziest thing you've ever seen at work? I was a manager at a small casino running a blackjack tournament. I watched a man have a heart attack before my very eyes. It was the end of the round for that table. The man advanced to the next round. As soon as the hand was over and was about to congratulate him, I saw the exact moment that he realized that something was wrong. He grabbed his chest and his lips instantly turned grey. It just so happened that the person sitting directly to his right was respiratory nurse. She realizes immediately what's happening and throws him on the ground and starts CPR. She took full control of the situation like a hero in the movies. It was horrific and awe-inspiring at the same time. The man made a special visit to the casino 2 weeks later to let us know that he was okay. To me, this wasn't crazy because I watched a man almost die. This was crazy because I saw the exact moment that he realized that he was in trouble. I saw the exact moment the nurse's instincts and training kicked in. I'll never forget it. I was working at a car dealership and was standing outside with my friends drinking coffee on a Sunday morning. All of a sudden we heard this sound like thunder and looked up to see an old Pontiac flipping end over end into the lot. It came crashing into a row of Yukons we had up on racks and knocked them over like dominoes. Funny thing is that the guy driving the car was drunk as hell and climbed out of the wreckage without so much as a scratch. There was a fire in the store I work at. Towards the back of the store. We were getting everyone to evacuate and a woman would not leave. She told me that since where she wanted to shop was not on fire, if she wanted to assume the risk of bodily injury, that I could not stop her. I had to try to balance not losing my shit on her with getting her to leave. Luckily an older authoritative firefighter had just walked by and heard her. And he turned around and physically picked her up and bitched her out as he took her to the exit. It was as if the retail gods finally cut me a break. He did what we all wanted to do. It was absolutely glorious. The weirdest thing for me, hotel front desk, was an old man, easily in his 70s. With his wife and kid, asked me if he could do donuts on our parking lot. No. Not the edible kind. I asked. One of my co-workers told me on Christmas Day that one of our elevators was currently off because it had bloody walls. Turns out one of the guests, an already suspicious dude because of the rate he had gotten smashed and beat the FCK out of his girlfriend and the friend they had come with. Dude got arrested. Of course. Someone took a shitty in the final hole of putt-putt. Is it called butt-butt now? I worked at a car wash. They would go into the tunnel, then come out and pull into a 3x2 car bay where we'd do a full service interior clean while customers waited inside with Wi-Fi, coffee, TV, etc. One day was particularly busy, and the bay was full. So we had a couple cars waiting in line to get in. There was one guy, we'll call Tom, probably early 40s, short, Asian, recently hired. He apparently forgot to get the stop button in the tunnel. So a car was getting pushed out and hit the empty parked customer car that was in front of it. He got the customer out. IDK what he said. But they went inside to talk to the manager. Then he tried to fix things by pulling the cars up. But ended up hitting 2 other cars with a customer car. Then backing that car into the bushes and wall in the back. He just got out and stormed off while all hell broke loose with a handful of customers' cars being crashed and everything backed up. Kind of happened over the span of some weeks or so. One of the managers at my work, not my department, started dating this lady. Lady turned out to be not so good for him because she had a coke addiction and she was using him for money. Long story short, she bled him dry and left him right after. He ended up homeless. He then bought a van off a buddy for cheap and started living behind our building. He had an outlet running under the loading door and everything. That lasted for a couple weeks. But then upper management found out and the guy got canned. I miss that dude. Hope you're doing well, Tom. I'm a bartender and work a fair amount of weddings. The wedding party was FK'd up before the ceremony and it only got worse during cocktail hour in the reception. Sometime after dinner we heard voices raise. Shouting and cussing commenced. Two bridesmaids were having a spat. Right in front of all the guests. Including the bride and groom. Unfortunately they were bickering in front of the wedding cake. So when reason flew out the window and good sense was doing shots, they began pushing each other. Which escalated to hair pulling and blows. Obviously people began trying to break it up. Unfortunately in the middle of the scuffle one of the bridesmaids was pushed forcefully into the cake table. She fell over this 5-story perfectly decorated cake. Demolished it. Never seen something so terrible and yet hilarious at an event. One of our machines broke on my shift. Roughly 10 kLbs of metal went crashing 10 feet down, landing about 6 feet away from the nearest employee. I was shift lead at the time and was counting heads, making sure nobody got crushed. My heart still races at the thought of that. All safety protocol was being practiced, it was literally just a freak accident. Thankfully nobody got hurt, just shooken up a little bit. When I worked retail in the early 2000s, one of our seasonal employees dropped a TV from ladder height onto a customer's head. It was not a flat screen. It's a toss-up between seeing full human leg being wheeled by on a cart, or a 100-ish pound tumor that was removed from a patient's front side being wheeled on a cart. Both were equally disturbing. After a year of working together, my nice and overly polite quiet co-worker went into his boss office and started huffing from an aerosol can. My co-worker found him on the floor and called an ambulance. But he refused to go. He later did it multiple more times during work hours before he got let go. I work in a skilled nursing facility. And one of our residents had the ashes of his deceased wife with him following her service. Her son ran in the next morning. Through the lobby. Past the nurse's station and into his room. Grabbed the urn and sprinted back out to a getaway car. Brought a motorcycle into the building and did a burnout in the hallway. Scorched a nice hole in the rug. Edit. No. This was not me. I worked a summer job framing houses when I was in high school. I watched a co-worker slip and fall off of a 22-foot wall. Amazingly his worst injuries were bruised ribs and a broken little toe. And he was back to work 3 days later. I was working retail at an office supply store when one day two guys walked in and they seemed really nervous. They were just walking around the store. Assistant manager came by and told me to just keep an eye on them. About 5 minutes later another guy came in and it was obvious he was looking for something. He found the two guys and started yelling at them. I think one of the duo had slept with the other guy's sister. The shouting guy grabbed a folding chair and started swinging it at them and chased them for a bit. Guys eventually ran out and the chair wielding guy was subdued by the assistant manager. Semicolon. Same chain, different location. An elderly guy walked around our store with a torn colostomy bag. Leaked all over the store. My buddy pulled a short straw and had to clean it up. Worked in a sawmill and watched a guy cut his hand off. We all spent a couple hours shoveling bloody wood chips out of the conveyor belt. Fun times. Well, at least you didn't have to do that all by yourself. Good to hear your colleagues gave you a hand with that. Walmart ex-employee here. Settle in. I have a few. He has a gun in a holster, Texas, so naturally he's hanging out in sporting goods. Goes to pull his wallet out as I'm finishing getting him his fishing license and I hear a couple really loud bangs directly in front of me. Dude accidentally blew his foot to shreds because he didn't have the safety on. Next up is when I was moving to AP, asset protection. Where a fragile looking old lady is loading cart after cart of those super expensive Dyson vacuums. She just walked out the door with at least 5 of them. We didn't find out the whole weekend but we found it on the screens in the back that the camera caught. So bizarre. Someone was fired for not spider wrapping them, I believe. I got a lot more. But I'll end with the time a small woman nearly paralyzed a dude with like a judo flip trip thing on Black Friday for getting the last Spider-Man PlayStation. He was alright. Minor back injury and concussion and got his PlayStation. When I worked as lifeguard at an indoor water park this one day a guy's nipple piercing got ripped off when he went down a body slide. There was blood everywhere. His entire nipple was gone, but he was so scared from the ride he didn't even notice the pain till he sat down in the infirmary. A colleague making jelly shots, yes, with alcohol in them, at work during lunch, then putting them in the work fridge to set. I work for the government. He works for the government. Give him some slack. My boss attempted to dress in blackface for a Christmas party. We were in a work band together, set to perform to 100 or so workmates. My boss, a senior exec in our government department, thought it would be a good idea to appear dressed as Lenny Kravitz, complete with blackface. Thankfully she used a kind of brown foundation that didn't work as she'd intended. No one noticed. I only knew because I saw her applying the makeup and told her it wasn't a good idea. She just thought she was paying homage to Kravitz. I was relieved when it didn't work. I got robbed my second night working at a convenience store. So probably that. If not, it would be when all of us working clothes at BK got drunk on 40s and this dude fell through like 10 stacks of bread trays. A guy I used to work with picked up a portable table saw and threw it like a frisbee. Guy found out he was getting fired and ran off and hid somewhere in building. Massive place, so 99% of people didn't know he was being looked for. A few hours later he turns up at manager's desk throwing tables and fire extinguishers at anyone who had clothing identifying as a supervisor. Trying really hard to just wreck a manager, any manager. Big guy from the dock sees this from distance. Walks over with purpose of a frickin' movie star, grabs rampaging dude by neck and in one action lifts him in air and shouts, "Boy, stop." Slams him into floor and sits on him until police come. Just the total one-sided dominance. I've never seen a large adult able to lift a table overhead, so easily overpowered. Dock guy probably saved a life or at least saved someone a serious injury. Think they gave him like 2k in shares as a thank you. I worked in a clothing store that didn't have a public restroom. The owners told us that under no circumstances were we to take them to the restroom that the employees use. IDKY, but they micromanaged and watched the cameras like crazy, so I wasn't about to break that rule. Well, one night a woman was pissed because we didn't have a public restroom, and so she walked to the big trash can we had by the back where we were doing some work and literally sat in it, peed, and walked out. In front of everyone. Like it was nothing. Lady shoved a whole raw chicken down her pants, intending to steal. I showed up for work one morning and found someone's car in my parking spot. We only had 3 spots. I went into the shop next door to see if maybe one of their customers had parked there. The owner of the shop said no, but the car was there when he came to work an hour before I did. I walk over to the car and the windows were all steamed up. Aha, I thought. Thinking somebody got drunk and had a little too much fun and they fell asleep. I go over to the driver's side and try to look in, but I couldn't. Something seemed to be off. Then I saw it. A hose running from the exhaust pipe into the car. The doors were locked. I call the police and they show up in about a minute. The station was only a block away. They break the window and inside was the dead guy, as red as a lobster, clutching a Bible and some rosary beads. Not only did he kill himself, but he also cooked himself in the process. It smelled of diesel fuel and cooked meat. While teaching martial arts 10 years ago, I saw a kid stand in Chunbi, ready, while shitting his pants. His runny shitty flew up my face, onto the mirror, and onto the ceiling as soon as we started practicing front snap kicks. A shitty trail following his kicking foot. Guy on a new Walmart store worksite dropped acid. He was the main forklift driver. He was the cousin of the CEO of the construction company. Everyone knew, so all of us 60 workers had to just watch out for him. I did counter work at my family's pizzeria for a while. One time a lady came in, obviously intoxicated, to pick up her pizza. We knew who she was. She was a lawyer and pretty wealthy, but went downhill and became an alcoholic. Anyways, she pays for her pizza and holds it like a shy kid in middle school would hold their books in the hallways, and walks face first into a pull door, making the entire explode upwards and downwards all over herself and the door. She gets up, grabs whatever remains she could, shoved it back into the box and walked out. Worked at Pit in college. Homeless lady found her way to a bathroom. Threw a cigarette into a trash can which caught on fire. Smoke came flowing out under the door. Opened it and she was doing her laundry in the sink while the room was filled with smoke. Attempted to come in again the next night. Professional life post college. Turds on the floor. Not diarrhea but actual turds. Dude jumped off the top of the parking garage after getting laid off. Also went to Starbucks with a co-worker and schizophrenic homeless man punched him in the back of the head before screaming and running out. During a weekend there was a massively overweight guy who wandered into our building wearing only a house arrest bracelet. He was naked besides that bracelet. This dude managed to sneak around for almost 10 hours before one of the cleaning ladies found him rubbing one out in the ladies' restroom. The security footage of him sneaking around is hilarious. And apparently house arrest bracelets don't do anything. Used to work in a bar and we were showing the quarterfinals of the World Cup in the summer of 2018. It was England who beat Sweden 2-1, I believe. England had just scored the winning goal and in celebration, some crazy wasted football fan turned to his right and smashed a pint glass onto the head of an innocent old man. Must have been in his late 70s, early 80s. Luckily the old man was fine after a trip to the hospital. Just shaken. And he even became a regular in the bar. To my knowledge he still comes in every now and again for a drink. Found multiple used condoms all over the customer restroom floor. Edit. I work in fast food. I'm loving it. Co-worker by the name of Paul had just bought a new Corvette and brought it by work to show everyone. A random customer was checking out the car with the rest of us and asks my co-worker if he can sit in the driver's seat. Paul declines the customer's request. All of my co-workers are chatting it up and we make our way inside work when we hear the roar of a Corvette engine bouncing off the red line. A look of absolute dread appears on Paul's face as he reaches into his pockets and realizes he doesn't have his keys. We all run outside to witness his new car zooming through the parking lot and smashing right into the side of a building. Out of the car stumbles the random customer. Paul explodes on this guy. The customer is begging him not to call the police, but one of my other co-workers already had. Dude got charged with GTA. Paul was so pissed about the whole thing that he ended up trading the vet in for a Trailblazer like a month later. When I was working on Germany's Next Top Model about 10 years ago, we were doing a photo shoot on the beach in Venice, CA. For those of you that don't know, Venice is an incredibly filthy beach. So I was tasked with raking up all of the driftwood and trash. About 5 minutes in I raked up a little jar. I bent down and picked it up and saw there was a label with a bunch of Russian writing on it. My boss walked up to me and asked, "What do you got there?" I held up to the sunlight to get a better look into the dark glass jar, and that was when I saw the unmistakable outline of a human finger. I immediately realized that I had just found a jar with a severed finger in it. Pretty crazy thing to find on a public beach, I suppose. A woman who wanted our doctor to perform her operation after she'd slept with the doctor's spouse. Because that's the person you want to render you unconscious and cut you open ass. Found a couple F-king over the hood of a vehicle in the parking lot while the guy was chugging his beer. What really made memorable is that it was an older couple. This is the thread I was waiting for. You cannot, in fact, hold a firecracker in your hand and have it go shooting off into space from the palm of your hand. One of our customers attempted this recently, an ER nurse. Carlton. From Prince of Bel-Air being carried out of my bar. Over his tall girlfriend's shoulder. We had a man just waltz in naked one time and start shopping. We took a screenshot of the security footage and shared it around. We also had a guy jack off in the milk fridge.